chosen one, they assumed God gave you gentleness because you couldn't handle weight. They were wrong. God gave you restraint because you were strong enough to control what others would misuse. He trusted you with discipline before he ever exposed your authority, and now that authority is no longer staying concealed. Hello and welcome, my dear friend. See, you've been carrying something the world doesn't know how to read. They call it kindness. They call it softness. But they don't see what's underneath. They don't feel the fire humming beneath your stillness. That's where this begins. Because there's something the world always seems to miss. They don't understand that the people who choose peace often have the most reason to wage war. You've held your tongue when you could have torn lies in half. You've smiled through disrespect. You've walked away from battles that your spirit could have crushed in seconds, and they took it as weakness. But let me be clear. Your silence has never been surrender. It's been discipline. It's been protection. It's been obedience to something greater than your ego. You were made to love, yes, but you were also made to roar. That fire in your belly, the one that shows up not when you're angry, but when truth is being twisted. That's not rage. That's divine authority rising. You are not just kind. You are not just peaceful. You are built for confrontation of the highest order, the kind that doesn't destroy, but delivers. The reason your heart feels pulled in opposite directions is because you were never meant to fit into a single mold. You're not one-dimensional, you're a paradox, crafted with the softness of the divine and the fire of the throne. And this world, it doesn't know what to do with that. They expect strength to be loud. They expect love to be docile. You confuse them, and that confusion is holy. They look at you and see calm. They don't see the countless moments you bit your tongue to keep the peace. They don't know how many times your spirit had to hold your body back from responding to spiritual attacks that no one else could even feel. You were not made to prove your power. You were made to carry it, quietly, fully, unmistakably. Think of the times your presence shifted a room without a word. That wasn't charisma. That was spiritual alignment. The type that speaks before you open your mouth. And when you do speak, atmospheres pause, because your words don't come from frustration. They come from instruction. You were built to carry the tension, to be both anchor and arrow. Yes, you cry. Yes, you pray for peace. Yes, you want to be understood. But when darkness gets too loud, you don't break, you burn. Your spirit doesn't fight to win arguments, it moves to restore order. And that's what scares them. You've been underestimated because you wear compassion like armor. But don't forget what armor is made for. You didn't choose the fire inside you, you inherited it. And it's time you stop apologizing for the heat it brings. You've probably noticed by now, the people who are drawn to your peace sometimes try to disturb it just to see what happens. They poke, they provoke, they wonder if you'll ever push back. But what they don't understand is, you've never been afraid to fight. You've just been waiting for the right battlefield, because chosen ones don't fight for ego. They fight for alignment. This isn't about snapping at people who cross your boundaries. This is about standing tall when truth is on the line, even when your voice shakes, even when your kindness is being twisted into a weakness that it's not. You didn't come here to blend in. You came to break molds, quietly, confidently, spiritually. You are the kind of person who holds back hurricanes with a smile. But you can bring the storm when heaven commands it. And that's what separates you. You don't need to shout to be felt. You don't need to clap back to win. Your restraint is your power. And your roar, it's reserved for justice, not ego. You were born for this balance, and you're about to reclaim it. You don't need to change. You just need to stop hiding. Because the version of you that you keep tucking beneath politeness, beneath patience, beneath that nervous smile, They're not the real you. They're the mask you wore to survive a world that was never ready for your truth. But you're not here to stay disguised. You're here to disrupt everything that's built on pretending. You've walked into places where the mood changed without a word, without a reason anyone could name. It wasn't tension. It was the room sensing something it couldn't define, but couldn't ignore either. They didn't see your face. They felt your frequency. And somewhere deep down, you already knew that. Because you've seen how people shift when you stop nodding and start speaking. How they laugh nervously, change subjects, or try to minimize the way your presence exposes what they hoped no one would name. But you're not here to be the pause that makes people squirm. You're here to be the truth they can't unhear. That's what spiritual fire does. It doesn't need to scream to set a room ablaze. It just exists fully, and the temperature rises. You are not a weapon. You are not an explosion. You are a reckoning. The kind that arrives without a warning, but always with a purpose. And that purpose, it's why you've always been tested more than others. Let me say this plainly. You are under pressure because you carry what cannot be bought, learned, or faked. You carry weight, spiritual weight. That's why they push you. That's why they poke you. That's why even the ones who smile in your face will try to chip away at your peace. Because the enemy doesn't fear noise. It fears stillness that can roar when called. And you've mastered both. You've lived your life on the edge of explosion, not because you're unstable, but because you've been holding back the kind of power most people wouldn't know what to do with. You've chosen peace. But now it's time to choose truth, even when that truth is fire. And here's the part they never tell you. Being fierce doesn't mean being cruel. Being bold doesn't mean being bitter. Being a warrior doesn't mean being heartless. It means being willing to say enough when everything in the room is whispering, just let it slide. It means standing in your alignment even when no one claps, even when people laugh, even when the consequence of being true is being alone. But if you've been feeling more alone lately, I want to tell you something that you might have forgotten. You're not being isolated. You're being set apart. Because what you carry can't be diluted. It can't be cheapened by approval or smoothed down by popularity. It's holy, and holiness is always misunderstood before it's honored. That's why you've been silent, waiting. Not because you lost your voice, but because the words weren't ready. But now they are. This is your permission to stop over-explaining, to stop pretending you don't feel what you feel, to stop handing out discounts on your presence just to be liked. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to warn anyone before you shift. The moment you step fully into who you are, things will rearrange on their own. Because the version of you that is both kind and fierce, that version doesn't beg, doesn't justify, doesn't shrink. They walk into the world with clean hands and a blazing spirit, and they let their life speak. So now, the fire you've been trying to hide, let it burn the lies. Let it burn the fear. Let it burn everything in you that ever believed being nice meant being silent. Because it never did. You weren't sent here to be sweet and small. You were sent here to speak what others are scared to say. To carry peace into chaos. To bring clarity without cruelty. And to walk with a power so undeniable that even darkness knows not to touch you. That is who you are. And you don't need to try harder. You need to remember deeper. Because you were always this. You've just finally stopped apologizing for it. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. If you found value in this message, please like the video and share it with others who might benefit. Don't forget to subscribe and continue your amazing journey